Physical intimacy does not take away pornography addiction. Even if your wife was available to you daily, we want to talk as practical as possible.
Wow, that must be so stressful. And in that moment, I feel so fake.
No talking when you are upset. Addiction and denial, they go hand in hand. Your wife is hurting right now. You are hurting right now.
How does one know if he's working too much?
Don't keep it a secret. File for divorce.
You're sacrificing them for alcohol.
Discipline without relationship equals rebellion.
I'm a busy dad. I'm never home. I don't have a relationship with my children. Is it better for me not to discipline them?
If you put me in a position to choose between you and your mom, I will always choose your mom. I am unashamed to be a good man.
Alex, really excited to have you with us today, Alex. I met you a day ago. Yeah, yesterday. Mm-hmm. And for the people that are listening that are not familiar who Alex Muzichuk is, can you do a short, maybe 2-3 minute intro of who Alex is, where he's coming from, what do you do now?
Sure. Well, first of all, Vasily, thank you for the invitation. And I'm glad that we can talk like this and be a blessing to others who are listening to us. I come from Springfield, Missouri, and I'm a family man. I have 5 children. My oldest is 15 years old, and my youngest is 4 years old. She's turning 4. What I do for a living and as a ministry is I'm a marriage counselor. I've been working in this field past 10 years, professional counseling. I'm a licensed professional counselor, and primarily I work with marriages in crisis, with ministry Focus on the Family. There's a program within Focus on the Family called Hope Restored. In this program, I'm one of the trainers there where I train other counselors how to do this work. So couples all over the world from 30 different countries come to this program, and we do marriage intensives. It's a 3-day or up to 5-day intensive where we spend 20 hours to 30 hours, sometimes a little bit more, with them. And the statistics show that about 80% recover. So this is what I do for a living. This is where the Lord called me, and God's been good.
Thank you for agreeing to come. And we'll dive deeper into several different topics. And just for people that are listening, there's 4 areas especially, and we'll diverge in different topics, but 4 areas that I want to cover today is focus more on husbands, marriage, maybe challenges and problems. So marriage challenges. Also, I want to address, because that's something that you have experience with, is alcohol problem, pornography problems. Also touch a little bit on fatherhood and us guys, as fathers, like what are some challenges that you see, the people, through your practice, the challenges that you see that you can maybe give some advice. But before we get into those topics, you work for Focus on the Family. I think a lot of us have heard, Focus on the Family on Christian radios. Can you tell us a little bit more about the ministry, the size of it, what they're, maybe how they got started, and what they do now?
Mm-hmm. Focus on the Family started with James Dobson. He's a psychologist, Christian psychologist that God led into the field of family and marriage. People listen to Adventures in Odyssey, little children from the stories, all the way from any kind of work that couples need. They have many branches. It's a global organization, and they have representation in many countries. Even myself, it's hard to kind of describe everything that Focus on the Family does. It's such a large organization. Primarily for myself, we focus on marriages that are in crisis, and we have 5 locations. And we also have a location in Canada, but Canada is it's a separate entity, but it's also focused on the family because of the kind of country's borders. But yeah, 5 locations, and there's about 60 counselors that do this type of work with all 5 locations. and nonstop, 52 weeks out of a year. And we serve about 1,500 couples annually that come through from many different countries. But if you go to focusonthefamily.com, there are so many branches that if you want parenting, if you want any kind of manhood issues or raising children with autism, any topics that are related to even finances, they have categories and books and services that they can provide. There's just so much, such a blessed organization. They're a blessing to the body of Christ.
And you've been with them for 10 years
10
now.
Years, yes.
What are some, when you think of your ministry, of your experience, what are those usual or like some examples of cases that you worked with that come to mind on a regular basis, maybe because of their complexity or how unique the situation is, that you can share with us? Like, hey, these are some of the problems that people have and are dealing with.
Mm-hmm. So, like, if you think of a parabola, right? There's a good average of problems, and then there's outliers that come in. Mm-hmm. Average problems that come in, obviously, affairs, addictions, then manhood issues or parenting issues. There's trauma that happens, abuse that happens. Sometimes they start out and have a family without developing certain skills that are necessary. It's like if I'm a good counselor, for example, let's say I'm a good counselor and I say, you know what, I want to help people. I'm going to start out a business. Because I do good counseling work, that doesn't make me a good businessman. Mm-hmm. So as I start out marriage, it doesn't mean that all areas that are necessary to run a family I am good at or they are developed. So there's a need to have awareness, those areas that need development, and grow in those areas. So a lot of our work, what we do is kind of semi-coaching or partner with a couple and help them grow or stretch the areas that they are lacking in or that are the weakest link in their marriage.
That's a very good approach to illustrate the counseling problems or challenges that were, let's say, if I come to a marriage and I'm good at communicating, but I'm not good stewarding my finances, mm-hmm. then where I come to counseling not because person as a whole screwed up and I just suck as a person, but more of like, hey, these areas are good, but let's work, let's say, on finances area of your life, because that makes it more hopeful and realistic to approach, where it's like, oh, I suck as a person, how do I change? Where do I even start? It's more like, oh no, I'm pretty good in these areas, average in those, by this area, I need some help in that area. So it's like you're focusing in a specific area mm-hmm. of your development, not necessarily like me as a person as a whole that sucks.
Absolutely. It's not about my identity. It reminds me, on our wedding day, I gave my wife a gift of a whole bunch of credit card debt. Mm-hmm. At that time, I was a minister and I was serving in a church passionately and loved the Lord. So does that make me a bad person? No, but I need to have that awareness that I might be doing a good job ministering and serving at the church, but I don't know how to manage finances. No one sat down and coached me or explained some truth and principles about it. But good news is, I tell my clients, good news, bad news. What do you want first? Mm-hmm. And then some choose good news, some choose bad news. I said, good news, it's a skill. Bad news, it's a skill.
Mm-hmm. Have to work on it.
Yes.
In your experience, you said, there's problems in the middle, like affair and other things. And if you can remind again, let's say, the most common problems that you guys face in your practice seems like over and over, especially the recent ones, let's say in the last 2-3 years, that the trend is like, hey, these are usually the mm-hmm. common problems. What are they?
Conflict. We're talking about areas that are undeveloped or the areas that I'm not good at. Inability or not having a skill how to resolve a conflict. Very common. empty nest stage. When families are built on a child-centered, is dad's busy providing for the family, mom is caring for the kids. Her attention is on the kids, make sure they go to school, all the things that a child needs. And it's a lot. It's a lot. And any family that has kids know how much it takes to raise them. And what happens is they drift away towards investing towards their own relationship with each other. They get to the empty nest stage. Kids go through high school or they go to college. They are launched. Now they turn to each other and they look at each other and they ask a question. Hi, who are you? What are we doing? And they have a lot of challenges of rebuilding relationship, difficult stressors that come, losing a job, losing a business, losing a loved one, a stressor that comes on a marriage. And they're, because of that stressor, they're not able to navigate that. Also, remarriage, we see that not only divorce, but remarriage, that those cases come up pretty often, that blended families, yeah.
What are some common problems for conflict in marriages? Is there usually, again, kind of like a pile of common problems? Or is it so random that even hard to categorize into 3 or what reasons? That's, hey, these are like the repetitive issues and reasons for conflict in families.
I think what would be helpful for our listeners and viewers is to define or maybe address a myth about conflict. There's a myth that when I get married, or a healthy marriage does not have conflict. So we have this goal, how do I live marriage without having a conflict? Well, if I want orange juice, my wife wants an apple juice, that's a conflict. And if I want to listen to pop, some kind of Christian pop, she wants to listen to classic music, that's a conflict. So conflict is normal. Every marriage, every relationship has a conflict. Our vice president within our program said once, if you take 2 people, opposite genders, male, female, you take 2 personalities, you have 2 family of origins, they come from different upbringing, and you put them together, he says, if they can understand each other, that's a miracle in itself, right? So we are set up from the get-go for that conflict. And part of that is transformation, right? Part of that is that iron sharpens iron, and those areas of that are undeveloped, they show up through those differences. And also, they attract us to each other. I wouldn't want to be married to a clone. I don't want to be married to a clone. It's boring. So conflict is normal. What we do with conflict, that's where the problem is. If I don't have a skill to resolve conflict, I'm stuck. I either run away, I withdraw, I shut down, or I attack. Yell, criticize, blame, and that's the only tools I have in my tool bag. If that's all I have, then after a while it gets boring. And I just find a way how to exit or how not to deal with it. So yes, conflict is something that's not going to go away, dealing with differences, but how do I deal with it in a healthy way? Hopefully we'll address some of that today a little bit.
And yes, I want to address that, and I think we'll be talking more, let's say, from a guy to a guy, from, let's say, from a husband's perspective. So let's say a husband and a wife have a conflict, and it's like, let's say, and the husband wants to blame the wife. It's like, well, she doesn't do this, that's a wrong way to do it. So what can a husband do in that, let's say, in a pattern, like you said, yelling, blaming, to get out of that pattern? And how does one switch and practice into a healthier way of conflict resolution from a husband's point of view? And what does a healthy conflict resolution look like, especially in more complicated cases? Now let's say I want an apple, I want an orange, but maybe stuff that's been building up for a while.
Right.
How does one just change the next day, be a totally different person. It seems like kind of hard to do.
For sure, yeah. I'm really glad we're talking about this because God loves marriages and God loves families. And He's a Lord of peace, and He wants us to live in harmony. He designed it that way. One of the things that I guess I'll start off addressing is, and we want to talk as practical as possible, and sometimes we love to kind of circle in theoretical things, but we want to kind of practical. One mistake that we often see people make is they start to resolve conflict or differences. They communicate when they are escalated, when they are upset. Okay? So one of the first steps that a person needs to do is to regulate their emotion. And this is one of the skills that we teach, that often we see that person doesn't know how to regulate their heart, how to regulate their feelings. So let's say my wife says something, I feel controlled. Mm-hmm. And there's a pattern to it or history from my upbringing. I feel controlled. So I'll start jabbing, throwing sarcasm or something like that, or say some kind of a word or criticize her. The reason I do that is because something I feel on a heart level. There's something happening in my soul. In that condition, when I try to do constructive relational repair or work, I'm not able to do anything. We cannot do righteous work. We cannot do repair when we are upset. So one of the things we're talking about is to cool off, to regulate your emotions. And what that means is step away. No communication, no talking when you are upset. Go to your bedroom, go to your garage, go to your man cave, go somewhere where you can go for a drive and cool off. Make sure your emotions are lowered to a place where you can civilly talk in the tone of voice, the way nonverbals, your body, so that you don't feel like you're about to be attacked. That's kind of the first step that we do in resolving conflict. Second thing that people often miss is talking from their mind only and not taking into consideration their heart. So with my mind, I think, I believe. With my heart, I feel and I fear. Okay? So if I am not communicating what is happening in my soul, what is happening in my heart, and we're just going, we call them 4 useless questions. Who's right or wrong? What really happened? Who's to blame? And what are we going to do about it? If that's kind of the topic of the conversation, you're going to be circling and not get to the heart of the problem or the heart of the resolution that you're looking for. At that point, when you can sit down and talk to your wife, talk about your heart and listen for her heart, out of that place, then you can start building, if it's necessary, steps how to get out of that.
Follow up on those 2 points. So in a moment of, let's say, a wife says something, feel I'm getting worked up, do I communicate to her like, hey, I'm getting really upset right now, I need some space, can we talk about this in 15 minutes or in half an hour? I'm going to a garage, I'm going for a drive, and I'll be back. Is that a proper way to do it?
That would be ideal. Sometimes I get triggered so much that I don't even have the capacity to say, hey, honey, 15 minutes, I'll be back. Gasket is blown, right? Yeah. Everything inside of me is just kind of bells and whistles. So it's okay it's ideal. Some couples have like a sign or something and say, hey, I need a minute, and walk away. But I need to come back. What happens if I tell, hey, honey, time out, man cave. Next time, hey, time out, man cave. Hey, time out. Then the 4th, 5th, 6th time, she doesn't have a confidence that nothing's going to be resolved, and she's going to keep following, keep pursuing. We say someone runs away, and then the other one is a pursuer. She'll keep pursuing because she's disconnected. She's disconnected. She doesn't feel connected to you. And she feels like every conflict is a step farther away. So the coming back, that's when we kind of addressing the communication, coming back and talking through, hey, I felt alone, or I felt controlled, I felt scared, I was intimidated, or I felt embarrassed, and just talk through what is happening on your heart to help resolve that conflict. And we're just kind of giving general bullet points. There's kind of more to it, sure.
So first, hey, don't try to resolve once you're worked up emotionally, calm down. Second, when you come back and you're having that conversation, that you're looking, because when you named those 4 useless questions, I'm like, those are 4 really good questions. Let's figure out, let's get to the bottom of the problem. And I think especially for us guys.
Yeah, logical.
Yeah. So how do you maybe in a practical way learn to ask yourself, like, in this moment, how does she feel? What is she feeling right now? How does one learn to do that where you're not listening to solve a problem and not smeared to do the word that plenty of times, but learn figuring out, like, hey, it's not necessarily solving a problem, but I guess for guys, how do I figure out how she feels in the moment?
Yeah. Kind of welcome to manhood. Trying to figure out, how do I relate to this wonderful bride that I married, to this wonderful wife and a friend, and she's so different from how I am. So for us Slavic guys, I guess I can use an example of cars. So let's say we get a nice car, we let our wife drive it, and she wrecks it. She calls you up, she says, hey, honey, I got in a car accident. I'm okay, but there's been an accident. So we come to a car crash scene. Your wife is sitting on the curb, kind of has some kind of blanket on, something. You come to the scene, you run to the car, and you're like, oh, the headlight needs to be fixed. Hold on, is the engine knocking? Maybe it's not knocking. Okay, the air bags are not blown. Well, one is okay. And you walk around there and you're trying to assess how to fix it. What is missing in that scenario? Like, if you come and you focus your attention on how to fix the car, what is missing?
You focusing on the wife?
Yeah, nobody's focusing on the wife. So this is what we do. We come and we want to solve the problem. As men, we're fixers, we're go-getters, we're providers. We want to provide a solution. We want to solve a problem. But what is missing is we're not putting into equation the pain. Pain. Okay? So your wife is hurting right now. You are hurting right now. And in the middle of the pain, you're trying to do constructive work. It's like breaking a leg and saying, well, that's not as important, but we got to get this house painted. So let's, can you grab this brush, or can you grab this bucket? And both of our legs are broken. In a conflict. We both got hurt. And if we're not focusing on the pain and just resolving through those 4 useless questions, do you see how quickly it can get entangled and messy, that while we are hurting, while we're upset, our hearts are hurting. We're trying to resolve a conflict and it doesn't work.
It's very understandable where you're like not focusing on the problem, let's say, or resolving the problem, but first focusing on the pain. It's like, hey, somebody is hurting right now, somebody's in pain. Let's figure out kind of deeper on how they feel. I'm just repeating so I understand them more clearly. That's helpful. You mentioned a lot of times, or often, that you guys see people with, there's an affair happens in a marriage. That's a lot of, like, a huge betrayal, a lot of hurt. If somebody is encountering that problem in their marriage, what are some mistakes people make in trying to resolve that challenge in their marriage? And what are positive first 2-3 steps they can take in facing this problem in their marriage?
Unfortunately, we live in a time where that is happening, and we see that is happening. And probably the truth is, Vasily, like, it's been happening through generations. We even see it in the Old Testament, and maybe it's more frequent, more celebrated in Hollywood, more accepted. So it's kind of maybe normalized more, but it's been happening. One of the things that we talk about mistakes is panic. We panic. If I found out my husband had an affair or my wife had an affair, I panic. It's like a rug has been pulled from under me. I have a whole bunch of emotions that I didn't even know existed. And it feels like I'm drowning. It feels like the world is ending. In those moments, again, going back to that principle that we're talking about, it's not to resolve the affair or to whether we're going to stay together, are we going to split up, am I going to forgive you, are we going to repair this, is the main focus in those moments is on my own health. I need to eat, I need to sleep, I need to find a way how I can go for walks or talk to an individual counselor to process my own emotions. So if you think about three circles, through three hula hoops, right? There's a husband that has a life and a journey. There's a wife that has a life and a journey. And then there's this middle relationship. Middle relationship needs to be put on pause and focusing on individual heart, processing the pain of betrayal, processing the pain of, or the shock of it, because most of them you don't expect. It's not something that you foresee. It's the shock of it, the grief, the loss. Processing that, repairing relationship is secondary. But mistakes that we see is people focus on the repair of the relationship, or whether I need to make a decision whether we're going to stay together or not, neglecting the pain and the severe injury that betrayal brought.
It's an interesting perspective where you're not as concerned with the person that betrayed you. Kind of that person needs their own help. But in this moment, you need help as well because you're going through a crisis of your own.
Yes.
It reminds you like in an airplane, kind of put on a mask for yourself so you have the accident to survive. And then once you're, I guess, strong enough, stable enough, kind of start working on the relationship part.
Yeah. People panic because of pain. People panic because they're afraid. And the truth is, you have the power of that signature to dissolve marriage or to file for divorce. That power is always within you. You always have that option. You had it yesterday, you had it the day before, you have it today, you have that a month from now. So people panic and say, and they think, if I divorce, if I break this apart, I will stop hurting. And the truth is you will not. Unfortunate truth is you will not. Divorce does not take care of your pain. Divorce does not address the betrayal that you feel. That's individual work, maybe with a counselor or with yourself in the presence of the Lord. You need to work through those emotions. And when you do, you'll make a lot more reasonable and wise decisions after that.
So in this moment, as you're working, each one of you trying, let's say both of you agree that, hey, we'll address this, we'll work on this. Let's say the initial response is not, yes, oh my goodness, in that moment of shock and panic, we're divorcing, but more like, hey, let's kind of trying to stabilize. And then once you stabilize, is it wise to right away or a must to reach out to outside help to help both of you on the relationship part? Or is it something that if both of you agree on that you can work on together, let's say in private? Or is that usually a challenge too big just for two of you, especially both of you being in the middle of that problem, to resolve on your own and move past in a healthy way?
I haven't come across many couples who successfully can navigate this type of crisis or damage on their own. Think of it as a bomb just went off in your home. And you need some people who specialize in different areas to help you walk this through. What I do see is people just hide their emotions. They suppress them. So let's say if the affair happened on a husband's side, mom doesn't want kids to live without dad. Mm-hmm. She knows the importance of a man in the life of a child, and she takes one for the team. And she says, you know what? I'm just gonna, that pain that I have, I'm gonna suppress it. I'm gonna put it away somewhere and lock it up. And for the sake of kids, I'm gonna continue and do marriage. So they don't go to counseling, they don't work through it, but they don't have a relationship either. And kids can sense it, kids can feel it. They are really good psychologists, and they know that mom and dad are not okay. Mom and dad are bickering and fighting, or they're living in separate bedrooms. And the idea is good that I'm just going to be quiet. I'm going to suppress it. I'm not going to talk about it. But at the end, you don't get what you want.
Got it. So outside help, highly encouraged. On a different topic, if a husband feels like he hasn't been pulling his weight, we understand, growing up in a Christian community, as a husband, as a father, you're a spiritual leader in a family. And so I grew up, didn't really care much about church. I kind of went there. My parents went like, hey, heaven sounds better than hell, so I'll just be going to church. I get married. I know that's my responsibility. I haven't been pulling weight. I have kids. Kids are growing up. Like, I should be leading them spiritually, but I'm not really growing, like living spiritually myself. And you may have the pressure or guilt on yourself, like I should be doing something, but you kind of don't know where to start. What kind of advice would you have for a husband and a father of that sort?
Mm-hmm. You have been lied to. You have been lied to big time. This is the message that I would say over and over to every guy, every husband that's a believer, is that you have been deceived, not in a way that you're not pulling your own weight, but in your value and the power that you hold. Your wife, she could have done life on her own. Yet she had the longing, she had the desire to be in relationship and commit herself in a covenant. So your presence is a tremendous value to her. Your spiritual presence with the Lord is a tremendous value to your family and to her. The way it's looked often is you need to do something, you're not doing it. Bad guy. You're not pulling your weight. You're not okay. Versus it's a value that you possess that is attractive. Enemy doesn't want you to be an authority. Enemy doesn't want you to be an influence. Enemy doesn't want you to be a lie. So he is a father of lies. So he lies to you that you are inadequate. He lies to you that you're not a good leader. He lies to you that you're not capable of doing a Bible study. He lies to you that your wife does it better. Don't even bother. And those lies are constantly bombarding you so that you don't step into the area of influence, because you are a threat. Mm-hmm. You are a threat. And when we believe that, we step out of it and we fall into this awkward complexity where I have to, I must, I should, I have to, I must, I should, I don't, I have to, I must, I should, and we run away and it just becomes overwhelming. The steps themselves are not very hard. I pick up a physical Bible, I sit down, I read out loud the text that's written there. I can read a Proverbs. Let's just take a Proverbs for the day. Read through it. Talk to your family about it. That's your Bible study right there. That's your presence. You can get up in the morning and just say to your wife, you don't know how to pray? Just say, honey, I bless you today. May God bless you. May God give you a good day. That's a prayer. That's authority. That's intercession. It makes her feel secure. It makes her feel safe. When a husband doesn't understand his authority, he kind of neglects that or gives it to somebody else to pick up that. And that's one of the biggest lies that it's annoying to me, that hurts me, that makes me cry, is that when men leave their post, not because they are bad, but because they have been lied to or wounded. I also come across many men who are wounded on an emotional level. Their heart is wounded. Someone said something, especially dad, father figure, that they didn't have a healthy father figure. It's sometimes he says something or didn't say something, and though that phrase, that word created a wound, and based on that wound, they lack confidence to step into manhood, into healthy manhood, which there's a lot of joy, there's a lot of authority, there's a lot of power for good. It's, I talk about this, I'm unashamed to be a good man. I'm unashamed to be a good man. So I'm speaking this for listeners, and as we're discussing this, there are good men, and hopefully they can step into that role and be a good influence for those who are around them.
If a dad, a husband, a father, he has a family, leading a family, but he's never opened the Bible and read with the wife or the kids, never led a family prayer. In that moment, is that okay? Is that not gonna, let's say, weaken him as a authority in the household? If he's like, "Hey, honey, I know I should have been praying more. I should be reading my Bible more. Sorry, I haven't been doing it. But like, hey, let's start somewhere. Like, I'll try to do a better job in it." In that moment, does it not make him look more like weaker? Like, okay, look at my husband or look at our dad. He's weak and he's acknowledging that he's not doing what he was supposed to be doing. Or what impact will that have on the wife and on the kids?
That's a great question. Vulnerability, you're describing vulnerability. Vulnerability is a glue to the relationship. Two things that I specialize in is marriages in crisis and manhood issues. When we are vulnerable, when we tell our kids, "I am sorry, daddy messed up. That was wrong. I shouldn't have raised my voice. I shouldn't have called you that name. You know, that time when I did this, daddy was wrong. I am really sorry." It builds credibility. It builds trust within a child's heart. It builds respect, and it builds connection. That my daddy also makes mistake, and we're modeling for our children. If my daddy makes mistakes, then it's okay for me to make mistakes, and this is how I fix my mistakes. So yes, vulnerability is very powerful, and it's another lie that quite a few men believe, is that vulnerability in our male brain, vulnerability equals weakness, and we bought that if I am weak in a way of or vulnerable in a way of showing the areas where I'm insecure in or I'm not good at, I'm gonna be less respected, or I am not gonna be loved, or I'm not gonna have authority, and it's not true. I work in this field, and I want you to do a homework exercise for yourself and maybe for those who are listening us as well. Identify within your circle of friends, more or less good family that you see, a good healthy family. You will see that there's a soft male, a male that's kind, that's gentle, that's patient. You're not going to find authoritative, controlling men in that family. So vulnerability is a gift to us as men, but it's okay to utilize it.
And a good reminder as I'm listening to you and what we talked about a little bit earlier, that even as when I'm approaching my wife or we have kids, approaching my kids with this, hey, I dropped the ball, but also to specify, I dropped the ball in this area of my life, where it's not, hey, I'm a failure as a husband. It's like, hey, I'm kind of even acknowledge it or remind yourself of like, hey, I'm pretty good at work. I'm making some money. I'm doing this well. I'm doing this well. Hey, this is just one of the areas that I need to grow in. So now it's not you're coming to your wife, acknowledging your weakness in this area of life and not acknowledging like, I'm a failure as a person, I'm a failure as a husband. It's more like, hey, this area of my life needs some work. So look, I want to focus on this area of my life right now, while reminding yourself and remembering that, hey, there's other things that I'm pretty good at. So it would be like a healthy approach to face this challenge in one's life.
Absolutely. I was listening to Michael Jordan's interview. He said the difference, or what makes me a better player between myself and other players, is I failed more than they did. Right? Meaning that when you fail, you try again. When you fail, you try again. When you fail, you try again. Failure is not trying. When I give up, when I dismissed an area in my life that is critical, that it's important, in some way I'm choosing to fail by not trying, by not doing it. I want to make an emphasis again, Vasily, in spiritual presence of a father, spiritual presence of a husband. We as men, we're not always aware what role we play. Think about a physical protection. If you live in some kind of a ghetto neighborhood and it's kind of shady, and you leave your wife there and you leave your kids there and say, you know what, I'll be back, and you just drive away. You drive away. How would she feel if you just left her in that neighborhood, in that shady neighborhood, and just drove away? How would a wife feel?
Not good.
Yeah, not good. We have those spiritual shady areas. There is a spiritual world. There are demons. There are spiritual authorities. There are influences that are going on. And she needs that covering. She needs that protection. And our children need that too. If we were able to see in the spiritual world, what happens when I get up in the morning and I say, Father, in the name of Jesus, bless my family. What is happening in a spiritual world? That type of protection, that type of authority that you create as a man, if you can visually see, your attitude and your approach would change how you act and how you do life in marriage.
That's helpful. What are some things from your experience that you notice the men often misunderstand about their wives? Yeah,
there's a whole bunch of things. I'm starting in my mind to prioritize them. There's so many. We're just so different. Different. Maybe when a wife comes with a lot of emotions and feelings, she's upset. Let's say I come home and my wife explains to me how she feels. Johnny did this, David did this, Lily did this, and my children, she's describing what she did, and there's a lot of emotions. And it's like being blasted with a fire truck, water hose, right? Being hosed down, and you're like, you're trying to recover. My role in that, men misunderstand that. Usually as a head of the household, as a guy, as somebody who loves my wife, I want to fix that for her. I want to say, okay, let's see, with Johnny, we're going to do this. With Lily, no, we're going to do this. And I try fixing, I'm coming to a car scene or accident scene, and I'm fixing headlights, I'm fixing everything again. And what I'm missing is she feels overwhelmed. All she needs from me is a hug. She needs for me to hear her out. Wow, honey, you really had a hard day. Wow, and the kids did this again? Man, you're a super mom. Wow. give her a hug, give her a kiss, say, I am proud of you as a mom. Let me know what I can help right now. Is there anything you want me to help? Where do I need to plug in? She needs to know, does it matter to you that what I'm going through? Is it important to you that I feel this way? This is the primary kind of goal for her communicating to you. She can figure out things on her own. She probably does a better job than you do anyway. But she wants to know, do you care? Does it matter to you that I feel this way or that I'm going through this problem? And yes, there are times where she wants your advice. There are times where she wants you to help fix it. But proportionately, more often than not, she just wants to connect with you. And the way you connect is by talk about your hearts with each other.
But I've tried practicing that, and I feel so fake in that moment. If she's telling me all her problems, and I go, I have 5 ways how you can fix all these problems, and I go, wow, that must be so stressful. And in that moment, I feel so fake. I'm like, that's not what I feel. That's not what I should be saying.
How does she react?
Yeah, she likes it, but then I'm like, I'm feeling that moment as I'm not being a dude. I feel like I'm being fake. I'm like, just, I don't know what I'm feeling, but I'm like, yeah, I feel not myself when I do that. And I'm like, wow, that must be really hard. Oh, that must be really stressful. And she feels good. And I guess my thing is I feel like I almost don't care. I don't care enough to fix the problem. It's kind of like you come and you complain to me and you share all your problems with me. And I feel like my way out of like not trying to help you, I'd be like, oh, damn, that sucks. It's like my way of saying like, bro, I don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why you're telling me this. So when I say, yeah, that must be stressful, as a guy, I feel like I'm ignoring everything and kind of like, anyways. So,
not being helpful.
Yeah, so anyways, let's talk about something else.
Yeah.
Why do I feel that way?
Have you ever been to a gym?
Yeah, not very often.
Yeah. Okay. So, like, I have a friend that works out. He has a 6-pack and a 12-pack and so on. So I remember I went to the gym with him, and he says, well, let's kind of work on biceps, or, let's work on your abdomen, kind of the stomach area. So we start doing these exercises. I'm like, okay, let's go. I mean, I'm going to keep up. Let's do it. I come home. I would get up in the morning next day. I couldn't get up. My muscles were so sore and so stiff because those muscles are not developed. So the reason I feel awkward, the reason it feels foreign to me is because that muscle is not developed. And so just be persistent, keep practicing, look for the outcome.
So fake it till you make it.
It's not fake it, because you can see the result. And you're saying that she likes it. She likes it. There are other areas that you like that might be foreign to her, right? But it's also area of how do I build intimacy with the opposite gender? And it's a win-win. The reason I do it, it's not because it's kind of like, okay, I have to do it, is because there's fruit. So when I started getting financial literacy, someone suggested, and it was like a decade ago, 10 years ago or so, I went through Dave Ramsey. People have different opinions on it, but he has good, practical, initial steps how to get your finances in order. They were very foreign to me. So this is in my mid-20s. I'm learning these financial principles of budgeting. What's a budget? Like I was doing premarital counseling with a couple, and I said, "Do you guys budget?" They said, "Yeah, Alex, we budget. Everything's good." And there's a voice in the back of my mind said, "Ask them how they budget." And I said, "I don't need numbers. I'm just curious how you budget." They said, "Yeah, at the end of the month, we calculate what we spend, what's left over. We do that regularly every day, every month, right?" So we know that's not a budget. Budget is planning next month ahead, where you're going to spend, where the finances are going to go, and so on. So I feel like there are areas in our life, when I started learning these principles, that there are areas that are foreign to me, but they are truths, and they do work. So just continue exercising that muscle, eventually it just becomes second nature.
Yes, practice that.
Yes.
But yeah, no, jokes aside, I think been trying to work on that, and you become more of like, I think at first I felt like very fake doing that, but then later you're like, hey, she doesn't need my help. She just, like you said, it's just me showing that I care, that she's stressed out, but she doesn't need me to take care of her problems a lot of the times.
We buy gifts for our spouses, not the ones that we love, hopefully, right? I buy gifts for my wife, Natalie, what she likes. I know the type of chocolate she likes. I know the type of kind of food, cuisine that she likes. I know what she wants to do on a date. I know those things. So when I want to show her that I love you, I am buying things that she likes. I am not doing the things that I like to show love. I am doing the things that she likes. That includes emotional intelligence. That includes emotional connection, bonding. I am doing things that my wife needs or likes to show her that I love her, not because I want them or I prefer them.
So in that moment, I would prefer to just fix the problem, but I focus on what she wants or what she prefers out of my love for her. Like, hey, I'd want to do this, but I think this is going to be more helpful for her. So I'll go ahead, even though it feels unnatural to me, I will do what she prefers and be more of help to her.
Love one another. Love one another.
Shifting topics a little bit, such extensive experience. What are some trends, common reasons that you see people, and again, we're focusing on husbands in this conversation, husbands, fathers that start drinking to the extent where it's affecting their marriage, affecting their family, and they're to the point almost sacrificing their marriage, sacrificing their family for drinking, and they don't have, I guess, will or maybe reason in their mind to stop that, even though they're losing their marriage, losing their family. How does a person get to the level where it's like, hey, there's a glass of alcohol and there's your wife, love of your life, and you're sacrificing them for alcohol? How do people get to that stage?
For some, it's alcohol. For others, it's drugs. For others, it can even be food. When we're talking about addictions, addictions have roots. And those roots typically are wounds. Something that happened either in childhood, it could be with a parent, one parent or the other. It could be some kind of event that happened, or maybe they've been abused, or something happened that really put a splinter in their soul. And various addictions becomes a medication, somehow a coping skill. I don't want to feel this pain, so somehow I'll apply a pressure like this. Oh, I think it feels a little bit better, right? So that alcohol kind of numbs that or takes that edge of that pain that's inside. Often I see that they are themselves even not aware. So if you ask a person, hey, what do you think it's related to? What's the root? They might not be aware of it, that as a specialist, as someone who specializes in addiction, might have a way how to help him bring that out, how to connect the dots. And, oh, it's related to my dad. Or, oh, it's related to maybe him not spending time with me and I don't feel loved. So this is a way how I can kind of cope with it. But excessive alcohol is a weapon. It's a weapon. If I can understand this, that it's a spiritual also weapon that is used against my manhood, against me being healthy, against me being in authority. Think about a kind of rival, football teams or basketball, kind of there's taunting that happens, right? You're like name calling and things like that. This is what enemy is doing. And what he's trying is to take you out. He's trying to take you out with it so you don't have a healthy family, you don't have intimacy with your wife, you don't have a legacy, you don't have a godly legacy, and so that you don't live out your life the way God designed you. It's a form of a weapon that is used, and therefore you need power, whether it's more someone who's more professional or a spiritual mentor that can help you get out of it and help you kind of assess where you are in this situation.
What if, let's say, a husband is drinking, a spouse, a wife comes and say, hey, honey, I think, asks him to drink less often because it's becoming a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But husband doesn't think it's a problem. What can wife do to help him realize that it has become a problem for the family?
Mm-hmm. One of the things, maybe first I'll cover what not to do. I can get into the role of kind of equipping my husband, or enabling, as a counseling terminology, enabling my husband or my spouse. It's not always a husband, right? There are times where a spouse is a kind of a silent drinker or a closet drinker, where she can't manage the stress or being overwhelmed with the way family life is, or children and so on, and husband goes to work, or kind of in between she finds ways and drinks. So it's not gender specific. I just want to kind of highlight it, but since we're talking to guys here, we're kind of addressing that. Mm-hmm. So as we understand that alcohol is a weapon that's being used. So when a guy starts seeking help, it helps him to kind of find a way how to start making those recovery places. So if a spouse finds, let's say a wife finds herself and she says, my husband is doing this, I feel helpless and powerless, I don't know what to do. Not to enable it, not to stop by and buy him beer. He says, hey, can you stop by, buy something? Not to buy alcohol, not to put him in places where he can drink, or because I love him, I'll just buy this for him. That's okay. No, have a clear boundary and saying, no, I am not going to do that. And whenever that happens, have a voice. Don't lose your voice. Have a voice and say, no, this is not okay. When you do this, I feel alone. When you do this, I feel scared. When you do this, I feel unprotected. When you do this, I'm afraid for our future. When you do this, I feel like I'm lost. And continue lobbying and advocating and sharing those things. And at the same time, taking care of yourself, like we talked previously, is that, so this is a crisis, this is a stressor. And in those moments, you as a wife need to sleep, need to eat, need to kind of prioritize your health and reach out. So in Slavic communities, maybe it's harder to go to a pastoral staff that can help, but there are a lot of amazing pastors as fathers that can kind of give more guidance, more counseling. Don't keep it a secret. Don't hide it. The more you keep it as something that's hidden, it's not going to get solved by itself. It's going to fester. The wound's going to grow. So this problem, the more you hide it, the bigger it's going to get. So practical help, reach out for help.
What if the husband challenges you and says, hey, like, don't embarrass me. This is not a problem. This is not that big of a deal. You're blowing this out of proportion now. Other people are going to find out, and kind of asks or, forces her not to say anything. At what point should a spouse or, in this conversation, a wife should draw a line for him? And I guess, is it helpful to be, let's say, for a wife to be like, no, this is what's going to happen. I've had enough. This is what we're doing, and kind of draw a line? And is that healthy, or is that more like too demanding where, let's say, a husband can react and blow up and react in a very bad way as well? Or should she try to work more progressively, maybe one baby step at a time, let's say half a year later, like, oh man, not much is being fixed. And then, I guess my thing is, like, if you just draw the line, like, let's say, if you don't stop, if you don't do this, this is what I'm doing or this is what I'm gonna do, is that healthy or is that, I guess, too strict?
Mm-hmm. Well, healthy for who, right? So if we're talking about the three circles again, a husband, a wife, and a marriage, when she discloses this to a pastor, right, it might not be temporarily healthy for the relationship, meaning the relationship will be strained. It might be difficult, but it will help her and it will help him. And when he gets healthier, let's say there's an intervention that she did. And the intervention she did is she went and talked to a pastor, and pastor, let's say, successfully was able to influence him to get help or line up some resources to help him understand more where their roots are, what is the alcohol about, what does it represent, what does it medicate. He's able to kind of heal and work through that. Out of that place, the pain that he felt of her bringing it up, it was there, but it's temporary because later on the other side, they're going to be able to come to this middle circle and repair that strain, the lack of trust, and all the things that it created. On the opposite end, the relationship still suffers, right? If she keeps it silent, the relationship doesn't get better. And he doesn't get better, and she doesn't get better.
How does, as a dude, and let's say, hey, a casual drinking, if I'm having, a typical, hey, if I'm having a glass of wine at a dinner with my wife, it's fine, but then it escalates to more and more frequently. If one was to reflect and think about their own life, say, hey, is this a problem in my life? Is this maybe even an addiction or dependency? At what point does, let's say, maybe not addiction, let's say dependency, in counseling terms, how does one distinguish, let's say, hey, now it's a dependency for you, or even to be more specific, a destructive dependency, or like, hey, it's having a negative effect on you, on your life, on your marriage? How does one self-reflect and analyze his own behavior?
Yeah. I don't know the exact numbers at this point, but there are assessments that you can take. So a counselor or a psychologist, you can even do it yourself online. They'll ask you, how many drinks do you have a day? Is this 2, 3, or a week? How many drinks do you have? How many drinks do you consume? And there's a score that you can put yourself on that will kind of give you or indicate to you where you are at. But let's approach it from a different side. So, okay, there's an assessment. It can give me a number. Out of 10, I'm a 6, or out of 10, I'm a 2. Let's kind of put that aside, and let's say that's not available, those technical scores. What does it do right now to your marriage? Is that a problem? Does that hurt your wife? Does that create disconnect between you and your wife? Is that a point of contention? If it is, why do you need that score? Why do you need that assessment to give you a number? You already know that it's a problem. And it needs to be managed. It needs to be addressed. It needs to be worked through. And if you're unable to do it with your wife, then you need someone that specializes or someone who has experience as a third person to help you and resolve that. Leaving it alone, leaving it as is, leaving it coasting. You know what happens when you leave anything unattended. Any garden that's unattended, guess what happens? Weeds grow. You leave a car that's not maintained, it rusts. You leave an area in your life that's not managed, whether it's your physical intimacy, finances, or drinking, if it's not managed, it's going to get worse. It's not going to get better. Automatically, you wake up one day, it's gone.
And if somebody's mentions, especially somebody close to you, somebody that loves you, and they tell you like, hey, I think this is a problem in your life, the natural instinct is like, no, it's fine, it's casual, it's totally normal, I'm fully in control. We're saying to take a lot more heed or give a lot more attention to those words, especially they come from somebody not with evil intent. They love you and they're warning you about something they see maybe from outside looking at you and your behavior.
Mm-hmm. If you go to counseling, let's say you have enough humility and love for your family, and you say, okay, well, I want to go to counseling. I want this area to be healthy. Counselor who works in this area will tell you right away, addiction and denial, they go hand in hand.
Mm.
Denial is very intimate with addiction. Right? So truths like this, someone can explain to you and show you you're just operating out of your human psychology. It's too overwhelming. It's too scary for you. It's too intimidating. So you want to deny that the problem exists. You want to bury your head in the sand and pretend like nothing's there. It's almost like, sometimes when you feel awkward socially somewhere, you kind of just maybe stare or pretend not to look, like some guys with girls, like they like something, so they'll just look away. Okay, I'm not looking. The problem went away. The problem's not there. I'm not looking there. Just because you're not looking at yourself in a mirror doesn't mean the problem's not there.
And moving on again to a different area of life, from your experience, do you see there's a trend of pornography becoming more frequent of an issue within marriages, or has it always been a problem? And because it seems like, I'm just being interested in a little bit of counseling and whatnot. It seems like is there maybe it's just being more talked about, or through your experience you see that it is becoming more serious of a problem, especially in the last couple of years?
It's a big problem. I think it always existed. The difference in the times that we live now, it's a lot more accessible. So even take a couple decades back, or 2-3 decades back, kind of those magazines, Playboy magazines, or any type of kind of pornography, you had to have a subscription. It had to come to your house. You fill out the subscription, or you go to a store and you need kind of some kind of ID or something to purchase it. Nowadays, you pull it up and it comes to you. It is pushed. Those notifications or those pop-ups, they are pushed to you. You don't even request it. You don't need a username. You don't need a password. None of that. There's tons and tons and billions of videos, of pornographic videos that are available. So the way God created us is we are attracted to opposite sex. So that's a human psychology. That's how God created. But because we're not able to manage that, we don't have the skill to manage that properly in a healthy way within the context of marriage at the appropriate time, because it's so accessible. It's the same problem as alcohol, right? So if it's accessible, if it's available, I don't have a discipline. I don't have that skill of a discipline to say, no, I'm not going to do this. I'm going to create these rules. I'm going to create this environment where I am not exposed to it because I'm so susceptible to it. I can kind of quickly go there and stay there. Knowing this about myself, I can create different scenarios to try to go away from it. So I think it's something that existed. I think it's going to get worse. I think it's going to get worse. Today, my son and I, we had sometimes, we went to the mall and we tested out Vision Pro. So Apple came up with this product that you kind of put on kind of these glasses. It's a 3D reality. They played a video in a way of testing. They played a video, and the video, it's not only 3D, but it's kind of panoramic. It's almost like I'm talking to you right now, and I'm experiencing that. And psychologists are saying that the pornography is going to even take to another level, completely to another level. That's that enemy is building. It's a weapon. It's a weapon when guys don't build that skill or safety net to protect themselves from it, and it destroys marriages.
What do you say to the idea, like some people have a point of view, the part of the blame or responsibility of a husband being addicted to something like that, partially the fault falls on the wife. And the idea is, hey, if the husband was satisfied in the bedroom, he wouldn't be looking elsewhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a very convenient belief, because then responsibility is not on me. The responsibility is on the wife, and I don't have to deal or kind of have the skill how to deal with my desires, how to manage my body. Then it's all my wife's fault. Yes, there are unhealthy wives. There are wives that are also have wounds and trauma. They have kind of been mistreated or different temperament. There's different things that come in, right? So if everything is within my wife, then I feel helpless and powerless, and it becomes an excuse. Okay, then I have the right to do it. Well, what were you doing when you were single? Who was responsible for you then? Your wife wasn't in the picture. You were. And when Cain kind of had that thought, God says, hey, Cain, that sin at your door, you manage that. You manage that, which means it comes to us. The temptation comes to us. And from experience, we work with married couples. We don't work with single guys. Well, I do, but kind of primarily I work with married couples. Physical intimacy does not take away pornography addiction. Even if your wife was available to you daily, it does not take away pornography addiction. Pornography addiction is based on a heart problem. It is not based on your spouse's behavior. Okay? So that pornography is medicating something within you. It's medicating some kind of, maybe you feel disconnected, or you don't have ability to connect to your wife. And the way you experience connection is through intimacy, physical intimacy. And that's the only way that you feel connected, because you don't have any other ways. Well, when that is not available, you feel alone. When you feel alone and kind of sorry about yourself, you go to the pornography. Someone goes to the ice cream. Other person goes to alcohol, but it serves the same purpose.
When you work with people with this issue, what are some practical, very first steps that one can take to fight this problem?
Take time to understand the root. You'll see any kind of good pornography recovery programs, they always work with inner kind of heart problems or root, and they go back to childhood. They'll get your history, they'll get your relationship with your dad, relationship with your mom. Were you close to them? Was anything said? Was there trauma? Was there abuse? And usually there's a kind of a pattern that you can find, and then you bring light to that, okay? And you bring light to that. What happened to you then, it's not your fault. It's not something that you chose. This event happened to you and became a seed for the addiction to happen in your life. And just work through that. When a person understands this, they feel encouraged, they feel hope, they feel empowered that, oh, now it makes sense why I go to this, why I constantly getting pulled into this. And kind of that becomes like a good way to start. Some people start through boundaries, kind of getting either Covenant-ized or some kind of software or some kind of restrictions. Those are good, maybe especially for teen type of boys. But eventually, if you really wanted to do it, you're smart enough to go through all these filters. You're smart enough to find, even to a point I've seen guys they go get another kind of prepaid phone, and all the restrictions are there, and they're doing their thing on the side. So it is good. It's nice kind of to utilize those things, but most effective way is to become aware that, yes, I have this issue. It's a problem. And start reading some of the books that other men, strong men who dealt with pornography, John Bevere has a good book, Kryptonite, on pornography. Other authors that you can kind of research and find out, read through. Just get educated on this area. And the more you are enlightened, you're going to figure out, hey, this is not a me problem. This is a we problem. And I don't want to be in a net. I don't want to be entangled. I want to be healthy, and I want to walk in authority with the Lord.
If a husband is wrestling with this addiction in secret, and he's trying to, or has a plan to stop and fix this area of his life, should he go talk to his wife about it? Or if she doesn't know, let's say at this moment, he finds a pastoral spiritual leader, a trusted person in his life, a man, and goes talks to him in private, should he talk to his wife before that, or just fix the problem and don't, quote unquote, hurt your wife with your own problems?
Right. No, great question. It depends on their relationship. There's a term that we use. It depends how safe you feel with your spouse. If you feel safe with your spouse to kind of share those things and open your heart, preference is that you work with your spouse. The practice or the principle that we operate on, or that we see effectiveness, is transparency equals intimacy. Transparency equals intimacy. We always encourage that your spouse should be the closest person to you out of billions of people on this earth, that there are things that Natalie knows about me that only Natalie knows, right? And there are things that I know about her that only I know, because we intentionally work on creating safety and being able to talk to each other. But if the relationship is not there, let's say husband and wife, they constantly bicker, they constantly fight, she broadcasts everything to her relatives, and she's not able to keep a secret, and they're criticizing, blaming, fighting. In that condition of the relationship, I probably would not bring up that conversation or that topic with my spouse, but I would take personal responsibility and find a mentor to, it's like that leech, to get rid of out of my soul, to get rid of that. Because then when I'm healthier, then I can kind of work with my wife and start building the relationship and working through it. And at some point, when I can confide and feel safe, I probably want to share it. I want to say, 2 years ago, this is what I've been dealing with, and I wanted to share, but I just didn't feel safe sharing that because of where our relationship was. The goal is to undress emotionally in order to experience intimacy. So it's kind of a symbolic where we physically undress to experience physical intimacy. There's a way how we undress emotionally is by being vulnerable and showing those areas of weakness in our heart that creates intimacy and bonding and connection with one another.
That's helpful and practical advice. And last topic, we're running a little bit late already, but on fatherhood. When something that I've been thinking about a lot, especially last year, 2 years, got a 4-year-old, a 1-year-old, and also, like you mentioned, having healthy families, good examples around me of good fathers, healthy and strong families. And I want to be a good father to my children, but I don't want to make mistakes that maybe I'm not aware of. Through your experience, what do you see common mistakes the fathers make that don't have a healthy relationship with their children?
Yeah. God wired us to work. And for a man, it's very important to provide for their family. Men thinks about that quite a bit. How do I provide? Do I provide enough? Do I make enough? how can I go to the next level and bless my family? And often while we are unaware, and I see that especially at the emptiness stage, it's very vivid. A couple of weeks ago, I had a man he said, I built a dynasty, multi-millionaire. He came on an intensive, and as we worked with him, his wife, I don't know if they're going to make it. They made some progress, but I don't know if they're going to make it. She is more leaning to leave him. His children didn't want anything to do with him. So he's sitting on the couch and he's crying. He says, I worked all my life for this. Now I don't have, in my retirement, I don't have anyone to share this with. And what mistake we make as men is we work for the family. We run a business, we work 40 hours, 60 hours, 80 hours for the family. But what we are unaware or not aware is at the cost of the family. My absence, lack of my presence at dinners, in the evenings, on weekends, it creates a vacuum within the soul of my children and my wife. And it creates dangers for them to not want to be in relationship with me or to go act out and find themselves in an addiction. That's one of the ways how addictions are formed. A father is not present in their life. Or something else that can happen. So this is one of the areas that we don't have an awareness. In my life, I made changes. I remember I was a director at retreats. At Focus on the Family, I ran retreats for a couple of years. But they're on the weekend. I see success. I built a team. Love it. But I see on Friday night, Saturday, I'm gone. Friday night, Saturday, half a Sunday, I'm gone. And when I saw this, I said, I don't think I want to do that. And I call it pruning. There's a good, healthy way how I can prune my life and say, do I really need to make that extra $50,000? Do I really need to make that extra commitment in church? Do I really need to pick up the responsibility for this ministry? Because I'm stretched thin and my children don't see me and I can't even go for a walk with my wife. We can't connect because the lifestyle, the pace of the lifestyle prevents us from doing that. So having wisdom how to structure, and this is, you talk about undeveloped muscle or how awkward it is. Oh, honey, you feel so bad, right? Yeah. Another one is that your wife wants you and not your money. Your children want you and not your toys. And it's so hard to deposit that into our male brain and to understand that. But those who can hear it, those who receive it, and can structure their life in a way that, yeah, you still work, you still provide, but provide more of your presence rather than your money. More of your presence rather than your money. And that's a challenge.
What are some ways that one can reflect and analyze his work in life and see if he is working too much? Because I think as guys we can justify, no, I need to, I'm doing this for you guys. I would love to just sit at home and do nothing, even though we're spending time with our family. We're like, well, I'll sit at home and do nothing. How does one know if he's working too much?
Yeah. God says, and I will give you a mate that can help us and be that mirror. Your wife will tell you. I sit down with my wife, Natalie, and we have those discussions. It's an ongoing kind of assessment discussions about next year, about previous years, and we see where do we need to cut our commitment. Does Johnny really need to be at 3 different sports? Or maybe he can be at one sport, and that will carve out time for us. So that assessment, that management, it's like running a company. You're managing time. When I understood this principle, and learning heavily nowadays of managing time, how important that is, of planning ahead your time, not just going with the flow, but planning. Hey, we're going to have a getaway 3 months from now. We're going to go with our children on this weekend getaway 6 months from now. Here's the reservations. Here's what we need to make plans on, and managing that. Yeah.
On the topic of fatherhood, but discipline, how does one balance what we call love and discipline? Discipline, you're doing it out of love, but kind of, hey, yeah, I guess you understand the question more. Like, how do you balance, like, hey, I'm a playful, loving, gentle, full of grace dad, but also discipline and strictness, that I don't become too strict, and also I don't become too much of grace where there is no discipline happening.
Yeah, and it's challenging for us to figure out. There's a wonderful formula. Discipline without relationship equals rebellion. Discipline without relationship equals rebellion, right? So if we were to make an emphasis on the relationship, we might find ourselves disciplining less because it meets the need. Children don't act out as much. They don't kind of crave that attention because you're present, because you do that. But it's also a role that we need to do. Not everything that our child does has to do with us. They are born with a sinful nature. And as a father, I need to instruct and I need to have boundaries and say, no, this is not okay. This is a consequence. If this is a repetitive behavior, no, then discipline comes in. And there's various methods of discipline. There's talking. Some hate more talking, sitting down and talking, says, just do something, just stop this talking, which is influential. I'm going to sit, I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to say, no, this is not okay. No, you don't do this. No, this is don't happen. I remember one time we had an issue with boys kind of talking back to mom. So I kind of noticed the pattern. I kind of made a mental note. I took him out to eat. And I said, hey, guys, I have a problem. There are a couple people in your mom's life that are hurting her. They hurt her. And they're pretty bad of what they do. Like, as guys, what can we do? What can we figure out? They just come and hurt her. She's like, what? Where? What? No. I said, yeah. Like, so as a husband, I made a promise to my wife that I'm going to protect her. And I need to be faithful to that. And basically work them up. Mm-hmm. And then, kind of the punchline, you guys are
You're the guy.
You're the guy. So I said, if you put me in a position to choose between you and your mom, I will always choose your mom. Don't put me in that position, right? That's discipline. This is me disciplining through words, mentoring them and saying, no, this is not okay. In school, it might be okay. In our family, this is not okay. We don't do those things.
So you said the discipline without relationship leads to rebellion. Mm-hmm. What about, I'm a busy dad. I'm never home. I don't have a relationship with my children. Is it better for me not to discipline them at that point? Because I just want to focus on love. So let's say if I show up and I see, anytime I come from work, the kids are sleeping already, and I see them on a Saturday for a couple hours, and they act out, mm-hmm. and that's me seeing them for the first time that week. So ideal is I develop the relationship first, but until then, do I stay away from disciplining until I know there is some sort of relationship?
No, I would not stay away from it. I would be more vulnerable with them. I would say, guys, I work. We're in a season where I can't take days off. I love spending time with you. I love being around you. I love hanging out with my family. In fact, this is why I work. But right now, I can't figure out because of the things that are lined up and the things that we need to do. So I am not present, and I miss you. and I miss you. And I am sorry that I cannot be present right now. I'm praying for God to help me figure out. But when you do this, this is not okay. As a father, I have to teach you. When you do this with your sibling, this is not okay. When you do this, this is not okay. God says it is not okay. This is what Bible teaches. So I can still teach out of a posture of vulnerability rather than authoritative. I'm tired. I'm exhausted. What? Okay, a powder belt. I took care of things. Okay, I go take care of myself because I don't want to take the time to talk to them. Right? It breeds rebellion.
Thank you for sharing so much. And then in closing, just a couple more general questions about men. Why is it so hard for men to reach out for help? So even in any of these areas of life, is a culture that we taught that, hey, I got this, I don't need help, I'll figure it out myself.
Yeah, I'm hoping that God would give me wisdom and courage to write a book. This is one of the areas that I'm quite passionate about in manhood. I had a title in my mind that celebrated genocide.
Celebrated genocide?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's edgy.
There's a war against manhood, and there's different influences, there's different movements to take away men, not physically, but to take away their presence. And we're talking about presence. And when good men don't do anything, that's when evil comes, right? It's not because there aren't any good men. It's because good men don't do anything, right? So if I can understand that society has been programmed and there's a kind of this machine through Hollywood, look at sitcoms. The message, the narrative kind of there is that men are stupid. You look at Simpsons, right? Stupid dad. Mm-hmm. You look at any kind of sitcom, a female is celebrated. Feminism, it's embedded everywhere through movies, Hollywood representation. Men are put down and left at, right? What it creates this insecurity within men that what do I do with my feelings? What do I do with my heart? What do I do with being a man? And what happens is men feel alone. Manhood is feeling alone. And the second biggest thing that we come with men is feeling a sense of failure. Right? Well, you can't have a voice as a man. You can't be a head of the household, right? You can't speak about your emotions. And all these different movements and things like that. And it's confusing. Well, where is my position? What am I called to be, or what am I called to do? And what happens is they go inward and they become silent. They are alone and feel inadequate. But God calls us to operate within our identity, who God calls us to be. I am unashamed to be a man. I am unashamed to be a healthy man. I am unashamed to be a good man. I am unashamed to have a voice in my family, in my children's life. I'm unashamed to have a voice in church. I'm unashamed to have a voice in a society because God created me to be a man and God created me to be a man of influence. Right? So it takes courage and acceptance of identity. And the world doesn't define your identity. I am proud to be a man, and I'm proud to be a man because God made me a man.
Thank you. What are some resources, and we can start maybe your favorite books, especially for men that want to grow as a man, as a husband, as a father, maybe even a book or two for each category that you would recommend, maybe a couple books, and then maybe other resources as well.
Sure. Yeah. Let's start with other resources. So I don't know if people notice or how wide this information is, but Focus on the Family has a great inventory of vetted books. They have a counseling department, and they read through books. They have guest speakers. They have authors that come on a show that review the book, and they vet books for content, for faith, and make sure it aligns with the gospel teaching. So if you reach out to Focus on the Family, you can Google their phone number, call the 800 number, and say, I need to get some recommendation. I'm dealing with parenting issue. I'm dealing with pornography. I'm dealing with alcohol abuse. I'm dealing with so-and-so. Give them the category, more or less, what you where do you want to get resources, and they will give you a list of prominent authors and books that are available to get help. So that is available. And also, I tend to switch more, but different people are different, is through podcasts. Sort of like what we're doing here is Audible app is amazing. Hoopla app, if you download it, it connects to a public library. So if you have a public library account with a local public library, you can connect that account to the Hoopla, and you can get audiobooks and podcasts and things like that you can just listen to it. So those are great resources, kind of that are available. If a specific book,
your personal favorites that had impact, I knew you're like, this book is good.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't really have. I'm a bookworm, so I just consume books and books and books, and I don't have a specific one that kind of stands out right now that I can recommend, because there's so many different categories. I read spiritual books that help me grow spiritually in the knowledge. So kind of like Lester Summerall, I read quite a bit of his material because he helps to understand some spiritual disciplines. James Dobson, kind of reading his books, like very favorite, love his books. But overall, I just kind of start here and just start consuming and
one after another.
Yes. What happens when I went to school, the 3 years of intense education, for a while I said, I need to stay off books because there was so much, and I kind of switched to podcasts and listening. But I always read, and usually read 2-3 books at the same time. So
got it.
Yeah.
In closing, you're involved, Focus on the Family, especially in intensives. Can you share a little bit, 2-3 minutes on intensive? So maybe somebody, it could be a resource for somebody.
Thank you for bringing that up. Focus on the Family has a program called Hope Restored. And to find it, it's simple, hoperestored.com. You go there, all the information is there about intensives, kind of options that are available. There's a group intensive. So group intensives are 5 couples that spend 4 days together, 8 hours a day. They go through the program, they go through teaching, and it's very powerful. They bond, very powerful experience. They have scholarships for group intensives, depending on a sliding scale on your income. They offer scholarship as well. There are private intensives. Private intensive is a 3-day, 2 counselors and a couple, or a 5-day, 2 counselors and a couple, depending on the intensity or depending on a crisis of what we're dealing with. And there are 5 locations nationwide that do these intensives. There's about 60 counselors. Reach out, talk to them. They'll give you more information. If you are dealing with a Russian-speaking couple that doesn't understand English, but you have a cousin, a nephew, or someone, you can request that I would be the counselor at the Hope Restored Branson location in Branson, Missouri. And that's the main one there. That is available as well. But I think we're addressing English-speaking couples, so any of counselors do an amazing job there.
And those intensives are specifically designed for marriages in crisis. So it's not exactly like a marriage retreat where, let's say, my wife and I just need to get away for 3 days. We're like, yeah, why not go to Focus on the Family intensive retreat, work on our marriage? Is that possible as well? Or is that primarily focused for, hey, we have a serious problem, we're going to go here and work on at this intensive?
It's there's no screening for how bad is your relationship in order for you to come to an intensive. So those who do go, and I wish that everyone would go, are heroes. Heroes of marriages, like, heroes of faith. Those are heroes of marriages, that they would invest into marriage like that. Outside of that, there are getaways. We call them, like retreats, we call them getaways. So there's about approximately 30 plus retreats every year that Focus on the Family does, the Hope Restore program does, and counselors who do intensives, they lead them as facilitators. So Q&A is very rich. Couple comes in, one session Friday evening, all day Saturday, and then half a day Sunday. And those retreats are kind of available, I think, at 3 different locations nationwide. So to get more information on that, focusonthefamily.com, search for getaways, Hope Restore getaways, all the information there, dates, type of retreats, and you can come. It's an enrichment program.
Alex, thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm.
We're glad we got so much of your time. You sat down, shared your experiences, your thoughts on different topics. It was a blessing to me. I hope it's a blessing to many others. Anything you want to share in closing? Leave some words for us men?
Yes. Every time I have an opportunity, I want to share. First of all, Vasily, thank you for invitation. I really enjoyed kind of hanging out with you and just talking about being a man and being unashamed to be a man and trying to figure out this confusing world and trying to figure out what does it mean to be a priest, what does it mean to be a businessman, what does it mean to be a father, what does it mean to be a husband, and all these hats that we wear that are important, all are important. I want to talk to guys, so through this podcast, is that God loves marriages, God loves families, and God loves you. You are a son of a living God. You are a son of a living God. It's a completely different relationship. When we talk about a business or authority, I'm a manager. Hey, did you know I'm a manager? Hey, I'm a director. Yeah, they promoted me. I'm a director now, right? But when you talk about, so there's a manager, there's a director, there's a supervisor, and here comes a son into an office. All those positions, they know they don't stand a chance for that relationship, that CEO with a son. This is our position in God. We are a son to a living God. Therefore, God is on our side, and all resources, everything that's available, God's ready to equip us for us to live a healthy life and to live a blessed life and to be His voice and not to be ashamed to be His sons, to be good men on earth and to be present and to do His will. Therefore, I pray for men. I hopefully God will help us to bring more resources and awareness that this world needs good men. This world needs good men.
Alex, thank you.
Mm-hmm.